and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm Rich Wilson, and you're watching the world famous Rich Wilson Show. That's right, it's me, Rich Wilson. So, all right. So, what's in the news tonight? Tonight we're gonna cover we're gonna talk about gun violence, of course, in the United States and the tragic roles that it's taking. And we're also gonna talk about Ukraine, Russia, Poland, China, and the U.S., of course, and how all of this could possibly be tied in together. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Taliban and what's going on with them, and the Houthis and what they were up to tonight, or this in the past 48 hours. So let's get started, shall we, tonight on our first story topic of the night. And that would be gun violence. Now, understand that gun violence is a serious problem, and there's always been this fight that the reason why gun violence is because of all these people that own guns. Okay, and if we outlawed guns, we wouldn't have gun violence in this country. Well, that's absolutely inaccurate. That statement in itself is inaccurate, okay? Here's the reason why it's inaccurate, okay? Responsible gun owners, okay, people that actually follow the law, aren't the ones that are committing these crimes, okay? And the reason being is because a large majority of people that commit these crimes, extremely large, we're talking in the 90 and upper 90 percentile range, are people that are knowingly engaging in an illegal activity with a gun. Okay? They're not what you would call responsible gun owners or legal gun owners that know how to operate guns safely and legally and take their responsibility to their Second Amendment to the highest regard. Okay, so and tonight's episode is not going to be about Second Amendment's rights and what they are. The Second Amendment, of course, you have the right to bear arms. So we're not going to be discussing the Second Amendment and getting into whether or not the Second Amendment is needed or not. That's another discussion for another day. Okay. But what we are going to discuss is the gun violence in this country and why it's a problem, and why, or at least I couldn't tell you why, actually, our president's not really addressing this issue. Okay, and it's escalating and it's getting worse. And I'm going to go through this article with you, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the things on what my opinion is on why some of these actions are happening, and some of the things we can do to try to stop this. So let's get into this story right now. By the way, if you notice, the camera angle is a little bit different and the image itself looks a little bit different. Again, my significant other has done even more for me to get this show to a much more professional level, and she is working every day with me to do the things we need to do, and hopefully by the time we get done with a lot of things we're doing, we're going to make this really, really awesome. So, like I said, here we go. All right. So, thousands of fans gathered in Wisconsin to celebrate the Milwaukee Bucks NBA championship, but the scenes of celebration soon turned into chaos when gunfire rang out. Two shootings broke out early Wednesday in downtown Milwaukee that wounded 3, sent people running for their lives, and left the community shell-shocked. All right, so if you're not familiar with this, if you didn't pay attention to this, I don't know how much the media really covered this story to a point. I know that, and I'll talk a little bit more later about what happened at the Nationals game. It was covered for a few minutes, and then it went away. Of course, the Bucks won an NBA title, and of course, everybody celebrates when you win a championship. The city erupts into an absolute, just sometimes pandemonium chaos of celebration. Okay, and somebody decided at that point, a couple people decided to fire off shots, and unfortunately, it wounded 3 people, and also. What they don't cover in this, because it wasn't gun related, there was actually several other people that received injuries from the stampede that happened. But it wasn't a mass shooter incident, like somebody went through the crowd and just started randomly shooting up people. There's been speculation. Nobody has specifically announced, because they're still investigating. There's speculation that it was some happy Milwaukee Bucks fans that were celebrating and had firearms and were deciding to shoot them off. There's other speculation that there was a fight that broke out between some fans and guns came out. I will honestly believe in, and we're going to dive into this into the articles, that second one is probably more what this situation was, but that would be speculation at this point, and they're still investigating it. So just say that that's my opinion, that I believe the second part, there was a disagreement that broke out between fans and people had guns and they shot at each other. So that's where I'm at on that. The shootings are only a snapshot of the skyrocketing gun violence that has swept the nation in recent months. Between Saturday, July 17th and Friday, July 23rd, the Gun Violence Archive tracked at least 1,018 shooting incidents, and so that's a shooting every 10 minutes that left at least 404 people dead and 928 wounded. And in total, more than 1,000 were wounded or killed this week alone. These numbers are not static, and they are constantly updated as their data comes in. Okay, so let's just take a moment to absorb those numbers. Okay, 404 people dead out of 1,018 shootings, 928 people wounded. In total, more than 1,000 people were wounded or killed by this week alone. Now, everybody kept talking about how bad Afghanistan was, right? When was the last time 404 people were killed during the 20 years in Afghanistan in 1 week? Okay, or 928 were wounded in a week. That's in a foreign country in a combat zone. Been a while. We're doing this by the week. In the United States. All right. You have to excuse me. I forgot to turn my ringer down. And I do apologize for that. But there's lots and lots of people that are messaging each other right now. Hopefully they're messaging to come to my show. They're not. But anyway, like I said, think about that. How often do we see these kinds of death tolls happening in a week's time involving Americans? War. Usually in a war. This is on American soil. This is Americans shooting other Americans. Okay. So I just to kind of emphasize on those numbers. Last year marked the deadliest year for shooting-related incidents. In the U.S., at least 2 decades, according to the Gun Violence Archive data, with more than 43,000 gun deaths. But the GVA's data suggests 2021 is on track to surpass those figures, with more than 24,000 gun fatalities reported so far. This was last year. This is 2021, and they're still putting the numbers together. 43,000 gun deaths in 2 decades, and we're about to and they're looking at passing that in 1 year when they get all their stats in. When was the last time that we saw 43,000 people or 24,000 plus get killed in 1 year. Again, that would be war. Again, this is happening on our own soil, by our own people against our own people. ABC News, which is where I got this article from, partnered with the Gun Violence Archive as well as its own stations and affiliates across the nation to start tracking the devastation. The findings reveal that gun violence for many Americans isn't far removed from everyday life. Okay? As attention turned toward the shooting outside the national games last Saturday, across the country in a dark church parking lot in Utah, 13-year-old Lance Moorhead was shot in the head around 1:40 a.m. Lieutenant Richard Bell of the West Jordan Police Department called the shooting a truly unfortunate, tragic accident during a press conference. He said that Moorhead and his 15-year-old friend had snuck out and one had bought a gun. Okay, so there's a problem right there. A 13-year-old and a 15-year-old snuck out of the house, and one of them was able to purchase a firearm, which means the person that sold him that firearm was not a responsible gun owner or a licensed gun dealer. They don't really talk about that. The two were not being safe with the gun, which resulted in the 15-year-old unintentionally shooting and killing his 13-year-old friend, Bell said. He added that there was some criminal culpability, and the 15-year-old was booked in the juvenile detention center on suspicion of manslaughter. According to the 911 dispatch call, the teens did not know the gun was loaded. Okay. I really hope they figure out who sold them the gun. I'm going to guess. This is like, again, an assumption on my part. Okay, this is an opinion. They're still on the investigation. This was a gangbanger or drug dealer or somebody involved in one of those particular areas that sold them the gun. Because a responsible gun owner, someone who is legally licensed to sell guns correctly, number one, first of all, where were they at again? Utah. Okay. So here's the problem. They bought a handgun in Utah. Even in Utah, you still have a minimum waiting period before you can get the gun. You still have to pass a background check, and you still have to have the waiting period. Okay. Now, it's not as strict as California or some other places, but you still have to wait for your background check to come back and clear before you can purchase a firearm and walk off with it. And nobody checks your gun for free or checks your background for free unless you've already purchased it and they throw that in with the purchase of the firearm. But the background check still has to happen first before they can let you get your firearm. Okay? They were able to go out that night and purchase a firearm. There's no way that's a background check because, first of all, you can't get background checks done late at night. Sheriff's Department's office, or your police department's office, whichever sheriff or police department agency that does it, they have office hours, and you can only get your background checks done during office hours. So there you go. There's another one. There's a bunch of things in this that says that they purchased this firearm in a majorly illegal way, and the person who sold it to them operated in an illegal way. So this isn't a responsible gun owner and licensed gun dealer we're talking about here. I really hope that they find out who did this and they haul this guy in and hold him just as responsible for the death of the 13-year-old. In San Antonio early Tuesday morning, 15-year-old Tristan Jaden Rasa was playing video games in his bedroom with his younger cousin when a stray bullet entered the room and hit him in the head. Dudes were fighting in the back. They were shooting at each other, and they brought it up here in the front. Ray Rosa, the victim's uncle, told San Antonio's ABC affiliate. They started in the back alley behind the house shooting at each other, and then ended up in the front of the house shooting at each other, and one of them missed the other. The bullet ran through the house and went straight through that person's head. Once again, this wasn't, I watched a video on this today. This wasn't an assault rifle. This was a handgun. You know, and I don't even like using the terminology assault rifle because there is no actual definition of an assault rifle because everybody you ask has a different definition of it. Okay. This was a handgun. They were shooting each other with handguns. They weren't out in the street shooting themselves with M60s or AR-15s or, M20s, or like that. They were literally shooting each other with handguns. And this is not an uncommon occurrence. I watched several videos today. There's one in New York where two guys are getting into an argument. There's a big cement pillar between the two of them, and they start playing Ring Around the Rosie on the around the damn pillar, or Duck Duck Goose, and they're shooting at each other around the pillar. And it's a cell phone video of them doing it, and this person is literally like right there. And how the person shooting the video didn't get shot was amazing, but it didn't seem like they managed to shoot each other at all. They were a foot away from each other with a cement pole in between them. They chased each other around, and somehow nobody got shot in that. That in itself was a miracle. But there's videos all over the place. And like I said, I'll get more into this when I get through this article. This one's kind of long. Altogether, more than 800 Americans under age 18 have died from gun violence so far in 2021, with 174 of them under 12. Now remember, y'all like, well, this is 2022, Rich. Well, 2022 is not even a month old. These are all these stats and numbers are compiled from last year to be as up to date. We won't get stats for 2022, and they release them every single quarter. Okay, so you're not going to see true stats for 2022 until we get into the end of March. Okay, with 174 of them are under the age of 12. Some of those incidents have been mass shootings defined, and now this is what a mass shooting is. So a lot of you people that run around when somebody starts spouting off, we've had all these mass shootings. This is the definition of mass shooting, just so you understand, because people like to say that these mass shootings are on the same level as Las Vegas and Columbine and that the school down in Florida, which I'm drawing a blank on. These mass shootings are on the same level as somebody was having a party and they shot a couple people got shot because some people showed up and decided to shoot up the joint. Okay, mass shootings, they definitely need a level or a tier system to make it make more sense, because when somebody tells you that there was say 150 mass shootings last year, you think, oh my God, it's 150 Las Vegases, or it's 100. It's not. Those are different animals, and I really wish this is one of those parts of this that I wish there'd be a definition on at least get a tier system in mass shootings, because I want you to understand something. Wait till I read this article and you'll understand where I'm at on this. Some of those incidents have been mass shootings defined as involving 4 people or more who was injured or killed, not including the suspects. So far, there's been 18 mass shootings in 12 cities across the U.S. this week alone, according to GBA's data, with 19 dead and 74 wounded. Now, people love to put out there, there's mass, and like I said, when you use the word mass shooting, a lot of people start thinking about Las Vegas. They start thinking about Miami. They start, that school in Dade County. They like to think of the elementary school up in the north. They like to think of the club shooting in Miami. They like to think of these things and think that anytime you use the word mass shooting, there was 18 of them. Okay, and they think they were all like Las Vegas or the nightclub or this or that school down in Florida. You know, they like to think that. Well, but the problem is, this is 4 or more people who were injured or killed. So think about it this way. And here's one of the stories. There was literally a group that had a party at somebody's house. I think it was like somebody's birthday party or something like that. And it was a known gang. Okay, and a rival gang showed up. And I think this happened, I believe it was in SoCal somewhere, and shot up the place, and 7 people were injured, 3 died. That was listed as a mass shooting. Okay. Now, first thing I saw, and this happened on my own Facebook page, is somebody literally said there was a mass shooting in Southern California. We need to stop this Las Vegas style stuff. That's where these confusions happen. Okay? That's where this gets confusing. Mass shooting is 4 or more people who are injured or killed. So you could have 2 people on each side of an argument. All 4 of them have guns. And if they wound all 4 of themselves, but nobody dies, it's still considered a mass shooting incident. Okay? They don't even define it as it is one person shooting 4 people. It is literally defined as involving 4 or more who were injured or killed, not including the suspect. Now, in that sentence there, they say not including the suspect. So even if you got a beef between a group of people and one person, and that guy decides to defend himself and wounds 4 people in the process, that's considered a mass shooting. But it's not several, and when we're talking multiples of 10 people who were injured or killed. Okay, so that's why I said there should definitely be a tier system on mass shootings, because it's defined so simply that I can see where people get confused between Las Vegas or the nightclub and a couple people showed up to a party, broke out a gun and decided to shoot people because it was like a rival group or it was people they had beef with. Okay? Because those kinds of shootings happen on a much more regular basis, and because they list that as a mass shooting, it changes the way that people see it. The epidemic of gun violence also includes suicides, which are the cause of 60% of adult firearm deaths, according to the Department of Justice. Number's a little off, actually, but it's pretty close. In 2019, an average of 66 people per day died by suicide with a gun, according to the Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence. This year alone, there's been more than 13,500 suicides by gun. Now, they will say that number's definitely been on an uptick as of late because of the pandemic and people being locked inside. And I will tell you that it's the natural human condition to be around other people. Now, there are some people in this world who are reclusive and don't like being around people, but a majority of the group prefer to be around other people. When you have social interaction and social contact with another person, it causes chemicals in your brain to be produced, which actually makes you a happier person. And when you don't have that and you're isolated for long periods of time, it can cause that to break down. It can cause depression, and then it can cause you to start thinking you're all alone in the world, and you start thinking of extreme things to do. I will tell you right now, if there is anybody that's watching my show tonight who's seriously thinking about ending their own life, you are not alone. You can message me at any point at any moment, and I will respond to your messages. Also, there is an 800 number for the suicide prevention line. In fact, on some phones, all you have to do is tell it to dial the suicide prevention hotline. It will do it for you. It doesn't even have to search it. I know iPhone actually has a way, and worst case scenario, if you're that close to killing yourself, literally take your phone, press 9, and don't let off the number when you press it. Your phone will automatically dial 911. Get somebody over there to get you to somebody who could take care of you. Reach out to somebody. killing yourself is not the answer. There's also gun violence incidents that erupt from alleged domestic disputes. Domestic disputes were also up this year. The statistics are on the rise because people being locked indoors. Now, I'm not going to say that COVID is the only reason why these domestic disputes are on the rise, but in a lot of cases where you have signs of domestic violence, being locked up, being stuck in your house together will cause somebody who does engage in domestic violent acts against their spouse, and it goes both ways. I'm not going to gender that one, okay, is going to make it more prevalent because now they're there, and the target of their rage is right there in front of them, and they're stuck there. Folks, if you are the victim of domestic violence, whether you are a female or a male or whichever you are, a transgender, gay, straight, I don't care what you are. If you are a victim of domestic violence, report it. Get the person arrested. Get out of there. There are options, and there are ways to do it in which you don't even have to let them on that you're doing it. Speak in code. They will ask you certain questions that you can work into that code in order to make it sound like you're fine. In fact, there's a country song out there where this girl's literally picks up the phone and is calling and saying called 911 to order a pizza. Okay? There's ways to do it, and 911 operators are trained to understand once you start speaking something randomly, but then your speech, when they ask specific questions, are responding to those questions in such a way that they understand it is a situation that they need to mobilize quickly on because your life is in danger. Do not think that you deserve it. Do not think that there's no way out. In Wichita, Kansas, on Monday, Camden Campos, 21 allegedly kidnapped his girlfriend and her two children and brought them to a nearby lake. The woman jumped into the car and sped away as he fired shots towards the vehicle, wounding her 2-year-old daughter, the Reno County Sheriff's Office said. Of all the states, Illinois had the highest number of gun violence incidents. Oh, by the way, on that particular, they did catch him, and they're charging him with attempted murder and a bunch of other things. So they did catch him. I just didn't want to go into the details of that article. Of all the states, Illinois had the highest number of gun violence incidents, with at least 109 incidents tracked in Cook County. Chicago's Cook County seat reported 104 of those incidents, along with 10.2% of the nation's total. After Illinois, Texas reported the most gun violent incidents, which at least 70, followed by Pennsylvania, New York, and California, where there was at least 64, 55, and 53 incidents, respectively, over the last week. Pennsylvania, New York, California, 64, 55, 53 incidents over the last week alone. Okay, just kind of grasp your head around that. While no part of this country is immune to gun violence, as ABC News dug into the data, it found that the violence occurs disproportionately in poorer urban areas, from Los Angeles to Chicago to New York City. More than 2/3 of all gun violence incidents reviewed unfolded in census tracts across the nation, where more than 50% of the residents are not white. Okay, more than 50%. This article does not cover it. Okay, and that's does not cover that in detail. But I'm going to tell you that from what I was seeing and the numbers I was running today, the number's actually pretty close to 68% is in the in black on black shooting. Okay, and that's a problem. And people need to stop looking to their governments to fix it. They need to start policing their communities. Now, when I say policing your community, I'm not talking about going out and shooting people because you're just adding to the same statistics. Now I'm going to do something here. So it's gonna look a little strange at first. I haven't played with this before, but I want to show you a graph I saw, and there we go. So that's up. Now here's the United States, of course. Hawaii, Alaska, and the rest of them. Okay. Here is from Friday the 16th to Saturday the 24th. Here's reports of gun incidents. The bigger the circle gets, or the darker the circle gets, means the more it was happening. So Friday the 16th to Saturday the 24th. Just watch. Now we're at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's Saturday. Okay. Look at that map. That's from Friday, January 16th. Saturday, January 24th. I think that's the 24th. No, Saturday is not the 24th. Well, let me switch this to hours. Okay, this is days. Let's see if I can track this back. If I can switch this back and forth. That's hours. Oh, no, this is July 17th through the 23rd. My bad. I apologize. Okay, but that's July 17th through the 23rd. That's 1 week. Literally 1 week. And it just goes nuts. You'd almost think this was a contagion. Is what that was. Like it's viruses spreading. It's like a virus spreading around. If any of you guys have ever played, if you get, what is it? If you ever play, yeah. Now I'm drawing a blank on that. That one about the virus game where you can create a virus and you evolve it. And the whole goal is to try and wipe out everybody on Earth. It's called Plague Inc. My bad. So it's called Plague Inc. That's what it looks like on the map. That's gun violence in a week back in July. Like I said, I thought it was this past weekend and I realized, wait a minute, today's the 24th. So I was like, how's that Saturday? So let me explain. Plague Inc. in real life. Thanks, Kilmill. So let me explain something. First of all, let's take a look at the statement that came from the NYPD's commissioner, Commissioner Shea. He said that factors contributing to the surge in gun violence, including gang violence, police budget cuts, and COVID-19 shutdowns in the court system, which have caused a backlog of more than 5,000 gun cases. Taking the gun off the street is great, but really what we need is the individual carrying the gun off the street, he said. He went on to say, there had been a drop in the rate of gun-related cases in the month of June of 2021 after the department increased gun-related arrests and police targeted repeat offenders, but he said the drop still isn't enough. But here's the thing. When you look at who's getting shot in this city right now, and this is New York City, it's about 97% of people of color, he said. That's way off the charts. And a lot of this is black on black crime. And once again, like I said, now it's time for the individual communities to stop looking to the government. But here's another thing. And let me discuss why some of these things are happening in such great increases. And here's the reality of it. You have DAs out there who are now doing what I consider called catch and release programs. We're going to arrest you, then we're going to let you go as long as you sign a promise to us on a sworn statement that you'll show up for court. Sometimes they have these things called cash, or like they played around with cashless bail. So criminals are going out there. They're walking around with guns shooting at people they don't like. The Philadelphia police commissioner said that 2 people got shot in front of Pat and Gino's. One guy got shot and killed, and the argument was over a parking spot. This is why this is happening. Okay? Over dumb crap. And it's because there's not really, there hasn't been repercussions. Again, they're not wrong about the court system being backlogged because of COVID, that they can't hear all these. And of course, it makes the situation difficult, but these people are literally shooting people and murdering people, and we're going to let them back on the streets. Again, like I said, DA's weak on this. You have some areas where DAs aren't even pressing charges against some of these things. Of course, people being locked up in their houses and not being able to go anywhere, causing all kinds of issues. Now we have a problem with inflation where they're not making enough money to pay the bills. There's tons of reasons why these things are happening because of cascading effects. A lot of people scared to death. There was a report of one I read where a guy literally shot another guy because he wasn't wearing a mask. Okay? The media plays into that. The media fear-mongering, and it's being called fear porn now. Fear-mongering and getting people to feel scared of everybody. Look at what's happening on airplanes. From this hysteria about masks or not masks or this or not that. You have, agencies speaking back and forth on what is and what isn't. You got the same thing going on with guns. You go to Texas and you shoot somebody and they lock you up and they will prosecute you and they will not let you out until you go to court or until you go to trial, or you got to pay a lot of money to get out ahead of time, before trial. But then you take somewhere like New York, for the while, they were doing cashless bail and promissory notes saying, I'll show up to court, and these people weren't showing up. I mean, you'd think they would learn, because a lot of people that have come across this border illegally sign a statement saying that they'll show up for their hearing and never show up, and we never see them again. But New York, I guess, figured their criminals would, they would abide by the law. Here's the part that completely confuses the hell out of me. These people, the reason why they're in front of you right now in the court is because they broke the law. And they not only just jaywalked or ran a stop sign, they shot somebody. In a lot of incidents, they killed somebody. And it was illegal. So they've already broken the law. In most of these individuals, you will find a rap sheet of where they've broken the law multiple times. At what point does it seem like, now they're going to abide by the law? Now they're going to be a model citizen. Folks watching the show, you're not that stupid. I'm not that stupid. They'll sign a sworn statement saying they'll show back. What are you going to do if they don't? Put a bench warrant out for their arrest because they failed to appear? That happens anyway. So there is no additional repercussions. It's not like, well, you murdered 5 people. We let you out. You didn't show up. Now we're going to bring you in. It was life. Now we can give you the death penalty. It doesn't change their sentencing when they finally get caught, except for they might get a couple years added on for failure to appear. And half the time they throw that out anyway. So it doesn't do anything. There's nothing there to force them to want to go. This is why these things are happening in great force in this situation. Communities are not taking care of themselves. And let me explain how you take care of yourself as a community. Okay? Number one, you work with your law enforcement that are in that area. Number two, you keep an eye on each other. You keep an eye on each other's property. Make sure there's nobody there screwing around with it. And if somebody does show up to screw around with it, you let them know that ain't cool. Now, is that shooting them? No. However, if the person does have a gun and you go to talk to them about why they're in Bob's yard and they shouldn't be there and they pull a gun and you got one, guess what? Take care of business. One way or another, not going to tell you how to take care of business, but take care of business. They need to send a message that there are repercussions for their actions, and obviously DAs and a lot of places are not doing this. So people need to take it upon. Now, I'm not telling you to suddenly go down the street because, Joe the meth head likes to break into people's cars. I'm not saying go shoot Joe the meth head, who's cranked out on the side of the road over there. I'm not saying to do that. But keep an eye out for Joe the meth head in your neighborhood. And when Joe the meth head starts showing up somewhere he's not supposed to, you get law enforcement on the phone. You let them know we're aware of this guy. This guy's a menace in our neighborhood, and he's been doing this. Law enforcement come down there and find out why Joe the meth head can't be there. Now, in some situations, cities are so backed up and so busy that you literally could call DoorDash. You could order food on DoorDash and call the cops, and DoorDash will beat them there. It's not because the cops aren't doing their job. It's because they're so backlogged with so many things that unless there is imminent danger to the public, you may not be on the priority list if Joe the meth head is wandering around in somebody's backyard. So what you may have to do is call a couple of your neighbors up, say, hey, Joe the meth head's running around in Bob's backyard. We might need to remove him from Bob's backyard. Yeah, I know. I understand that. Kill Mill said that's one of the current problems is people have different ideas on taking care of business. If you were in your house and one of these fools breaks into your house, by all means, I believe you have every right to dispatch that person from the world of existence. Now, if somebody's in the backyard of somebody's house, I do not believe that gives you the right to go over there and dispatch them from this existence. It doesn't mean, though, you can't call up a couple of your neighbors and get these neighbors and go remove Joe the meth head out of the yard. You can literally take him, grab a hold of him, and remove him from the yard. Make sure, though, you get Bob. You contact Bob, let Bob know you're going to go do this, and that Bob probably help you out. Or Bob will sit there with it. Okay. Do community walks in your neighborhoods. Walk through your neighborhoods. Spot out gang symbology. Start spotting out where cars are frequently getting hit. Set up patrols areas. There is a group in Baltimore, and unfortunately, they lost one of their own this past week. They're called violence disruptors. Okay. And they're a community outreach program that's trying to stop this from happening in their community. Okay. Now, unfortunately, Baltimore is 92 square miles. It's going to take a lot of them. Okay. But unfortunately, one of the members was with a couple others, and they were getting something to eat, and a guy pulled up and shot him. Okay. But they are making a difference, and what they have done has reduced some of the violence in the areas in which they are at. Put together a community program. Get out on your streets. Walk around. Get to know your neighbors. That's one of the biggest problems we have in this. Most of y'all don't even know who your neighbors are. So how are you going to keep your neighborhood safe if you don't even know who you can contact in your neighborhood to help you out? Get to know your neighbors. Go out there and be a presence in your neighborhood. Let people know they can contact you. I seen one community where they actually have a call roster. that if something is happening in their neighborhood, they can go down the call list. And before you know it, neighbors are responding, and now you have a group, you have a unit that's going out there and functioning for the safety of their community. There's things you can do. Now, once again, like I said, and I'll reiterate before I move on to my next story because I need to get moved on. I've been on this story for 45 minutes. If you are a victim of domestic violence, there is so many phone numbers you can call. 911 is the easiest one of them all. Now, like I said before, because that person may be there with you, because COVID restrictions have still got you guys stuck in the house together, these 911 dispatchers are trained to recognize when you're talking in code, because that person may be there and you don't want them to know. They recognize that as soon as they'll start asking you yes or no questions that you can fit into your statements to hide what you're doing. They will get somebody to you as fast as they possibly can at that point, because they'll recognize this is an imminent danger situation. Please, if somebody gets you out of that house, prosecute to the fullest. Press charges. Get them out of your life. It won't do you any good to let them back in. And don't believe the bullshit guilt trips that they're going to give you to let you back in their life. If they beat the brakes off of you for months on end and then suddenly tell you everything's okay and I promise I'll never do it again, that's a lie. And men, do not think that you are a man and can't admit to these kinds of things. Because yes, men can get can have domestic violence happen to them too. Men can have the brakes beaten off of them just as much. So don't think because you're a guy, you got to suck it up and deal with it. Women, just because you're a woman, don't think you have to suck it up and deal with it. Regardless of what you identify as, that's no time to put pride in front of your safety and the safety of others. Get the hell out of there. Now, my next part of that article that I need to cover before I move on. If you were seriously sitting at home right now thinking about ending your own life, there is an 800 number you can call for the suicide prevention line. Also, you can press 911. They will send somebody to you. They will take you. Now, understand when you do this, their mission now is going to be to take custody of you and get you checked out. Get help. Choosing to end your life is not the answer. It's never the answer. There's always a way. It's like I tell people, the sun may set tonight, but it doesn't mean the sun will not rise in the morning. Tomorrow is another day. You look outside right now out the front window. The sun is set. But I guarantee you I'll turn that back on tomorrow morning. The sun will be coming up. It's never the only option. There are options. Trust me, I would know. I've tried to kill myself. It's not the answer. Call a friend. Call me. Most of you guys who come here to my YouTube channel already know about my Facebook page. You're on my Facebook page. Hell, half of you I know in person. You got my phone number. You got my you could text me. You can call me. You can send me a message. I don't give a damn. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. If you really think that's the answer, call me first and talk it over with me. Because I don't agree with you, and I'm going to talk you out of it. Now let's get on to our next story. Because now we're going to go down the conspiracy road. Okay. Obviously, overseas, you guys know that the Ukrainian thing is really starting to heat up. Okay. Now, let me give you an idea if you're not familiar with Ukraine. Unfortunately, this is one of the best maps I could get where I could show you things. Currently, right now, the Russian troops are stationed themselves in positions around Ukraine at the border. These red dots on this screen here represent Russian troops. Now, the big circles represent 6,000. The medium circle represents 4,000, and the small circles represent 1,000. Notice you got a couple thousands down here, one in Crimea, and then you got a couple here, a couple there, a couple there. But then you see a lot of 4,000 and 6,000 troops. Okay. Stationed along the border. Okay. Now, understand that any new troops that have shown up on the area, they're not confirmed yet. It even says this in the article. Trying to figure out why that is still. You guys can't see it, but I can. I've got a square up on my map. Oops, that's not the one I'm looking for. I got this square that's popped up on my map, and I am trying to see where it's at so I can make it go bye-bye. But it's there, and I'm stuck dealing with it. So, all right. It just bugged the hell out of me and not you guys. So anyway, so that's where Russia has set their troops. Now, what's the big deal, right? What's this huge deal? All right, so let me show you this next one. Here is NATO and Europe. Now, understand this also includes Canada and North America, but Ukraine is not bordering or close to Canada or North America. Ukraine, you see where it says Romania on your map? Okay, Ukraine is below that. Okay. So you've got Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, and Romania right there. Okay. You got a couple other places that are around that area. Okay. Here's the thing. A bunch of those countries used to be Russian. That was part of the Soviet Union. Okay. So why is Russia so interested in Ukraine? Well, you think about it, Ukraine has been trying to apply for getting into NATO. Now, NATO doesn't want them. NATO, and I will tell you one of the problems is because Ukraine has been known to have a very corrupt government, and NATO doesn't want them involved. Okay. And so that's a problem. So anyway, what you've got going on here is Russia making a move, and this is where my opinions start getting in. Okay, so Russia's making a move against Ukraine. The United States doesn't really want it. Nobody else really wants Ukraine, but they are a sovereign nation. So now becomes the issue of what are we going to do? And by the way, I believe I am way off on that. No, I am. I'm pretty accurate where it was at. I could be off by a little bit, and I do apologize. It's not the greatest map in the world. Trying to find maps like this that are readable, get to be a real big pain in the butt. But anyway, why would Russia want Ukraine all of a sudden? Well, number one, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Number two, I honestly believe that this is a push to see what NATO does. And why? Because a lot of people will tell you, even I have told you, that NATO, for the most part, is obsolete. There's not a purpose in it any longer. When the NATO was there to monitor the Soviet Union and what it was doing, and the Soviet Union fell. Well, NATO became obsolete. Well, now Russia is starting to push the boundaries to see what they do. Now, why do I think that's a huge thing? Okay. By the way, in case you're wondering, not sure if you are or not, that is the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. There's Ukrainian President Zelensky. Okay, now Zelensky, not exactly the straightest arrow. But here's the reason why I'm drawing this. I'm drawing this line on one of the other reasons. If NATO does nothing and nobody does nothing to stop him, okay, and I don't know why that did what it did. That's weird, but that's Polish president Duda. Okay. Russia has made no qualms about wanting Poland back, and the reason why is the natural resources that are in that country, along with several other countries that are in that area that used to be part of the Soviet Union. Some of their uranium deposits, oil and coal, are in those countries. Let's stop and think about this for a second. What would the world be like if you had a completely energy independent and energy exporting Russian country? Because the United States is no longer on that list of being a major exporter anymore. Thank you, President. Russia then will surpass the United States in its economic authority in the global economy. Russia won't have a problem not having money anymore, or having issues with money anymore, feeding its people anymore. And Russia will surpass the United States. We will go below Russia in an economic level. Just off of Russia not only becoming energy independent, but then becoming an exporter of energy. Y'all thought it was no big deal that Biden gave the pipeline to him. You were wrong. And now you're starting to see that troop movements are starting to happen. In the United States and Britain and a couple other countries have started moving troops and bordering countries to Ukraine. And somebody said, well, that's because we're going to stop the Russians. No, we're not. This is what we're going to do. This is my solemn belief on this. I honestly believe this is what's happening. Now, once again, this is all opinion because nothing has happened yet. We are staging for when the refugees start coming out of Ukraine, that we can handle that, because the last time we tried to do that kind of an operation, we failed horrifically. We're setting up to be able to take on refugees, and we actually have to hold the borders for the countries of the NATO allies. So now I said I would talk about how this all involves, because our next character, that would be President Xi Jinping. He's the president of China. How does this involve the Chinese? Anybody heard of the Silk Road? The Chinese have suddenly gotten involved in a lot of things in Africa. A lot of natural resources in Africa. The other thing is, and I'm not going to go into detail about this, but one of the other things that's going on is China is starting to play around with the idea of thorium reactors. Okay. Now you can Google thorium reactors. Hell, Google or message my significant other. She can tell you all about them. If you know who she is. Okay. And one of the places to get the materials in order to make that, Africa is loaded down with rare earth metals. Okay. Now, a lot of you are suddenly going to say, oh my God, they're going to take the market on magnets. That's not all they have. And China is going into Africa and setting up trade relations and setting up mining operations, and they're starting to pull natural resources out of Africa. Today, we found out that the Chinese government just started moving squadrons of fighter planes in a position to be able to start maneuvering, making maneuvers out towards Taiwan. We're starting to see an expansion. Now, how does all this work together? Well, because the Russians and the Chinese have started working together. The United States is falling from its position of global leadership. And you now have the Russians and the Chinese that are slowly working together, and they're starting to make moves on either side of the planet, on their particular sides. That is a scary thing, people. And look at it this way, and it's like I told a friend of mine earlier. Actually, I told Kilmill. We were talking about it. Think about this. During the Cold War, the reason why the United States won most of the Cold War, is because we pressured the Russians into trying to outspend us. And economically, we crushed them, and the Soviet Union fell. The Chinese, during all of this, watched. And they learned. And now they're starting to do that. Because the problem is everybody keeps thinking, well, the Chinese are going to Taiwan. This is going to mean a war. No, not exactly. It doesn't mean a war. In order to get the United States provoked into actually a war with China, it would take more than just taking Taiwan. They would have to move further south, start taking the oil fields, the same lands that Japan took during World War II to produce enough oil for their military, and they would have to make moves there. They would have to take Taiwan back, but they also would have to force by backing shoulder to shoulder with North Korea down into South Korea, and this would almost certainly cut us off from that side of the planet. And the United States does a lot of trade back and forth on that side of the globe. And if they cut that off, the United States would become so crippled it'd have no choice but to act. But when people say, well, the Chinese that just invade the United States, because you all heard they can move 1 million men anywhere in the world in 48 hours. Well, just based off of the story I told you before that, and this is how the two stories work together with all the gun violence that's happening in the United States. You think if the Chinese dropped 1 million people on the western coast, they would make it into the United States very far before our own people started gunning them down? No. They over there, they know that invading the United States is a bad idea, and the reason why is because a Japanese commander once said, we cannot invade the United States and think we will win because we will find a gun behind every blade of grass. Well, they can also find a gun behind every trash can on the street now. So their guns are everywhere. I think that's one of the reasons why the Second Amendment should never be abolished. It's the one thing that keeps countries from marching in here that hate us. Because we have the best armed citizens on the planet. Now, understand that it's not like I want to be shoulder to shoulder with a guy who murdered 12 people. But if it kicks the Chinese out of this, the Chinese decided if the Chinese wanted to invade tomorrow, and we got to do something to stop them, I can look the other way for 5 minutes as long as he's fighting the enemy alongside of me. But after it's over, then he's still got to pay for what he had done beforehand. Okay? But what I'm saying is that the war will not happen here on this soil. The only way that it's going to happen here is long-range weaponry, but that's not the war. That will not be the war. The war will be the war of the economies. It will be a trade war. And right now, because of what has happened, we are not in a position of power any longer. They know this, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And we are going to lose. And don't tell me that it has to do with what the last president did. No, it didn't. One of the reasons for the deregulation was so we could get production levels up, so we could get trade up, so we could get exports going as fast as we were importing. And at one point during the last administration, it was getting pretty damn close to level again. Not anymore. Not anymore. We're no longer energy independent, and we're not exporting energy and making money off of it. We're no longer leading the world in trade. In fact, about the only thing we're leading the world in now is just killing our own people, so all the enemy has to do is wait till our economy crashes and we murder each other, and they don't have to do a damn thing. Wars, as we used to know it, are not going to be the same And here's the reason why. We're fighting an economic war and we're fighting a cyber war while our other enemies, the people in the Middle East, are launching ballistic missiles at each other. The Houthis decided to try and blow up Abu Dhabi. Now, most of y'all are like, Abu Dhabi, why does that sound familiar? Garfield kept trying to send Odie to Abu Dhabi. Okay. Abu Dhabi is run by the United Arab Emirates. And they shot ballistic missiles at them. Now you think ballistic missiles, those were nukes. These were not nuclear tipped ballistic missiles. The Saudi Arabia Defense Network was able to shoot them down, along with help with the United States. Luckily enough, the explosion and the pieces of the missiles landed in places, but here's the problem. The Houthis are an extension of Iran. They are. And there's starting to be rumors floating around out there that the Taliban are also becoming an extension of of Iran. Now, we don't know that for certain, and the reason why I bring up the Taliban is the Taliban just entered into discussions to work on their legitimacy as a world, as a power, as an actual government and country in Afghanistan. But there's a lot of rumors spreading around that a lot of that military equipment that we left around was getting sold off or bought up by the Iranians. I can't confirm that. Nobody discussed that, but I just started tracking certain things in certain way that things were getting reported and said, and I'm starting to see the lines. Understand that in the Middle East, there's a bunch of these organizations running around. Of course, everybody knows the PLO, which is nothing but an extension of Iran. But I refer to those are tentacles. The body of the octopus sits in Tehran. And that they're fighting physical wars. But the Russians aren't fighting physical wars. And the Chinese are not fighting physical wars. And now that we're not in Afghanistan, we're not really fighting physical wars anymore. So what does the war become? If it's not physical, then it becomes economical and it becomes cyber. That's the battlefield. And unfortunately, those battlefields only last for so long before it becomes a physical thing and before there's a lot of destruction. So understand that. When you watch the news, and I made this mistake last week about playing off Ukraine as not being that important, and I was wrong. I was. Ukraine itself may not be, the land itself may not be the important fact. What the important fact is what's going on around it. You have American troops and foreign troops now moving in certain positions. The Russians now even backing up even further. The embassy staff has been told to get the hell out, or the embassy families have been told to get the hell out. China is moving stronger into Africa and the stuff they're doing in Africa. Plus, they're moving stuff towards Taiwan. I tell you what they're trying to do with Taiwan. They're posturing to the point that the Taiwanese feel so intimidated that they're going to surrender. And China gets it without firing a shot. Same thing with Ukraine. Putin is lining it up and keeps doing it more and more and more to scare people, to say, all right, fine, if we give you the country back, don't kill any of our people. They're doing these postures to try and get these things to find out what is going to be the response. Well, you say, well, we'll do sanctions. Those don't work. They haven't worked. Especially not against a country as large as Russia, and especially not as large as a country like China. Doesn't work. Not going to work. We're getting beaten at our own game now. Some people are just so blind they can't see it. Wake up. Open your eyes. It took me 35 minutes to be able to piece together a lot of the things that the news isn't telling you intentionally. But they're telling you this inadvertently. You just got to piece it together. And I did. It's not that difficult. Now, I understand that I have some unique experiences, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist, which, you know, Elon Musk wondered why they call it rocket scientist. It's a person that builds a rocket is not a scientist or an engineer. But it doesn't take an extreme amount of intelligence to put these numbers together and see that there's a larger picture here. I think it took another 25 to 30 minutes of me and my significant other talking over lunch about all of this. Stop. Realize what's going on. Take a moment and put the numbers together. This isn't Common Core math. This is just old school 1 + 1 = 2. And no, I'm not going to cite that. I'm not going to cite a source to why 1 + 1 = 2. Where did I get my sources from to get all this information? Every news outlet that pretty much exists that you can get a hold of information and common sense. Watch the videos. Look at the way they're talking. Look at the way that they're particularly posturing certain things that they're saying. Then look at the movements. And this isn't, none of this that I gave you tonight's classified information. It's all out there for you to look up. And the reason why I don't want to give you the information is because I want you to flex that muscle that sits above your shoulders. You'll see it too. And you start to realize we're paying attention to the wrong crap here, folks. We really are. We're killing each other and we're destroying our own country at the same time. Our enemies don't have to do anything to us. Just let us destroy ourselves. Easiest way to win a war sometimes. One you don't have to fight. Folks, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I hope you had a good time with the show. I am still working on more and more. By the way, good news out there is today I had a follow-up appointment with my doc about my knee. For those of you that know me know that I had knee surgery done. I no longer am permitted to wear a brace. He doesn't want me wearing a brace any longer. For the first time in 2.5 years, I do not have to wear a knee brace. I do not have to wear a knee brace. If anybody out there that's in my listening audience knows a man by the name of Goose, pass him along the update. I'm now officially out of the brace, and I'm starting to work on phase 3 of my recovery, which I will soon get to start phase 3, which means that we start working on me walking without my crutches. Anyway, folks, have yourselves a good night tonight. Just remember, wake up your brains. Stop believing everything you hear. Start seeing it for yourself. Start using this. You'd be amazed the things you find out when you do. For everybody here at the world famous Rich Wilson Show, I'm Rich Wilson. Once again, I hope you guys had yourself a wonderful night. And we'll catch you back here on the other side. I've got to go because I'm now really late for a meeting I was supposed to be at. But I was having fun talking with you. So you guys have yourself a wonderful night, and we'll see you on the other side. For everybody here at the world famous Rich Wilson Show, once again, in the cold, wet, south of Houston area. Have yourselves a good night. Stay warm out there. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which that doesn't leave you much room for error. We'll see you on the other side. Good night.